Hello, and welcome to number 6 in the series of shared discussion group recordings. The subject for today is climate change and the environment. Scientists seem to agree that the climate is indeed changing, and at least partly as a result of human activity. Yet many seem, or wish to be, unconvinced. But beyond the issue of mere credibility, one might expect young and old to have very different perspectives on this issue. The elders will naturally have a greater subjective experience of the actual changes in the climate over the last 60 or 70 years. Can their reminiscences help young people today to take a longer view of climate change? It might also be assumed that older people's behaviour is less consumerist and therefore more ecological. What can the young learn from the elders that might help them to deal with the present situation? Or is it more a question of not repeating the mistakes of the past and creating radical new solutions? Will we see a revival in older values with regard to our responsibility to the planet? On the other hand, young people will age in an environment that was to some extent created by the older generations. Do the elders feel any responsibility? Do the young wish to lay blame? And if so, to what purpose? Are they even receptive to advice from the very creators of the situation they have to face?
I definitely believe there is climate change. I have noticed that just looking at this month, October, and the temperature is 20 degrees outside. I mean, there is definitely a change in temperature. It should be much cooler now. I remember when I was younger, October was autumn, we could see the leaves, it was all much colder, leaves were falling down, and it doesn't feel like autumn. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, there is a little bit happening, but not as much as it used to when I was much younger.
I would like to point out that there were 2 ice ages long before even fridges got invented. So to say that major climate change can only be caused by something that's man-made is, it doesn't stand up.
The human beings as a species will cease to exist as we know it, because the air will be unbreathable, the water undrinkable, the food chain totally contaminated with leads and estrogen and metal and everything. You know, the sea, toxic. It's toxic.
I am absolutely convinced that a lot of what we're doing in terms of fossil fuels and so on, and adding to carbon emissions, has to contribute towards climate change. And while we obviously can't do anything with natural long-term cycles of ice ages and so on, we can certainly do quite a lot just by behaving sensibly and looking after the planet to reduce the impact, not just for ourselves, but for coming generations.
Well, because you have to invest a lot, and this is very short-sighted view, is that, you know, the gratification has to come right here, right now, instead of thinking for the future. So obviously, if you're going to have to pay, and people, the same for me, for example, you know, if they tell me that, you know, my energy has to come from solar panels and I have to invest, I mean, it does make you think when you don't have a lot of money, but it's even worse with government.
What are your views on global warming?
Well, I think I heard or I've read somewhere that it wasn't as progressing as bad as it first anticipated all those years ago, which is a good thing. So I think perhaps making everybody aware of it back, you know, I mean, I'm talking about when I was a kid, like 20 years ago, maybe has had an effect, so that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, and like, would you say like it's changed in terms of like, you know, with how recycling and there's that so much more awareness with that now.
It's just the norm
was it
now.
around?
Yeah.
Would you say it was around much? Did you notice it so much when you were younger?
No, but it's the norm now to recycle. It's not anything special. It's just children who are being brought, my friends' school-age children. It's normal to them to do it and everything. So yeah, it's part of life now. Yeah.
I mean, do you call in terms of protecting the environment and doing what we can? Using as little carbon emissions as possible. Do you think it will make a massive difference?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it does, and I think the fact that it's normal for the next generation is a good thing. Yeah.
Obviously, there have been proposals around, cutting down carbon dioxide. People stop using their cars when they don't need it. Using more public transport. A lot of also recycling, because the burning of rubbish as well doesn't help. So it's using, what do we use for packaging and all of that.
And that's the thing, the worst thing about that for our kids, I feel like we know the problems like that. They can make a substance so toxic and so dangerous that takes thousands of years to be safe again, and there's nothing that they can put it in that can last as long as the material is going to be toxic. So that's just like giving an inheritance of a problem. The future generations will work out how to do it.
I think it's clear that it's man-made, at least in a large part. I don't think there's any debate about that.
Well, there is, because Peter Lyons here thinks that actually it's all to do with climatic change, and we've had an ice age, so now we're going to have a hot one. And 50% of the British population agree with him.
Do they now? Well, a friend of mine said we could solve the problem by doing two simple things. One is not eating any meat, and I've forgotten the second. Isn't that interesting? Anyway, it's definitely man-made. The scientists have shown that a large element of it is man-made. So I don't think there is a debate on it.
How our brains developed to be able to kind of think globally, in the real sense of think globally. Because if we were, everything would be different from what it is now. We would have stopped doing all this stuff, and we would have started. Humanity would have agreed. Look, this is totally insane. Let's do it another way. Our similarities are greater than our differences, but people are fighting just as much as they ever were. So I still think that people, even though everyone's talking about things in global terms, people really think and sort of act in their own kind of little.
Well, it started from the family first, and then it gradually kind of gets a little bit wider.
I think that the world is just going through its cycle, and it's arrogant of us to think that we can change and do better than nature can. It was there for thousands of years, and it's had changes that we're just trying to understand. So who are we to decide that we can understand about the climate? That doesn't preclude us from being careful with what we've been given to be custodian of and to look after the planet for the future.
As responsible human beings, we should be using technology more wisely to help improve the way we use technology, the way we use it.
So hopefully instead of an arms race, it'll be the other way around, well, not the other way around, but like but the environment will always decide what people will do, because it's already happening, the flooding, the weird weather conditions and all that. It's going to end up, destroying the world, So,
there have been many proposals put forward with, using alternative energy such as solar energy, wind energy, wave energy. There are always proposals coming forward, and some of them have been taken up, but it's very timid.
The youth now are not as politicised as we were. I was more.
What the youth like to say is they're politicised,
but they're not. They're not.
But I don't think they are.
They're not at all. There was nothing. I was.
I'm not looking forward to the future. I think it's going to be very, very hot. Some areas in the world are going to be very, very dry. Certainly there will be a water shortage. And we're going to have many, we have refugee crisis already, and it's going to get worse, with environmental refugees. We're going to have some already, but it's going to get worse.
Monsanto buying this patent on every sort of living organism, it's quite sinister really what's happening. And most people have not even got no idea about that. What they're doing about like patenting seeds. Somebody told me a weird story about wanted to buy a broccoli cutting or something, like a plant to grow, and they weren't allowed to sell it to them because they didn't have the right bit. Some really strange stuff like seeds and
genetic engineering.
Yeah, so that they can't know. With this company now we're the only ones that are going to be able to own this soya bean or this bit of broccoli or this asparagus.
Because people will have to leave, because there'll be no water, there'll be no...
Well, and also there's going to be rising sea levels, so a lot of people will be flooded out.
Some people will be flooded out, and there'll be wars about, who gets the river, who gets the water. It's just going to be really, very, very difficult. It's not a future I'm looking forward to.
It's like a path, the beautiful countryside, you could go for a walk, but the more people that walk along the path wear the path out.